Attention please, we're moving on to the next topic, and here's what we have prepared for you. Have you noticed a shift lately? Certain topics no longer appear on your feed. Certain people somehow edited out of the algorithm. Marginalized voices are being filtered out of view and legislated out of public life. And journalists are asking, whose story still gets told? Let's talk about what pluralism really needs and whether the media can still be an ally. So let's get ready for another exciting discussion.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And now I want to introduce you to my esteemed panelists. First up, we have from India, Srinivasan Balasubramanian. He's the managing director of Vikatan Group. Welcome. Please take a seat. And then I have three of my panelists in this corner. You've been kind of hiding, but now we want to bring you to the stage. First of all, we have Sylvie Coudray, who is the division director for media development, freedom of expression, and media information literacy at UNESCO. Welcome, Sylvie. You can sit right there next to Srini. All right, Andreas, you're up next. Andreas Gebhardt is the CEO and the founder of Republica, which is Europe's largest digital society festival, the place to be in May. Welcome, Andreas. And we also have Jennifer Wilton, who is a German journalist. She used to be the editor-in-chief of the newspaper Die Welt. Welcome, Jennifer. And completing our panel, oh, you've moved. Okay, thank you very much. Completing our panel is Eirliani Abdul Rahman. She's the co-founder and the co-director of the Global Responsible Tech Lab from the University of Mannheim, right here in Germany. Okay, so we've heard about people's voices that are no longer being heard, people that we are no longer seeing in our feeds, and I know that some of you have worked for print, so it's also about the stories and the people that we're no longer reading about, even in print media. So I want to start with all of you with a question: what are the voices or what are the communities that are marginalized that we're no longer hearing about or hearing very little about? Eirliani.
Yes, let me just rephrase.
Oh, 1 second.
Yeah, thank you. Let me rephrase that question. Who are the voices and communities that in the field of work that you're not hearing from? So I work in the field of online safety, specifically online harassment. And those of you who are working here in the media and or doing public-facing work may have been a target of harassment. So let's just see from a show of hands, how many of you here have been harassed? Yes, it's sobering, thank you. But not all who are doing public-facing work are equally vulnerable to online harassment. So studies have shown that women, people who are identified as LGBTQIA, and people of color are more likely to become targets than cisgender white males. So we have here Ms. Coudray, a panelist from UNESCO. In 2019, UNESCO launched a report called The Chilling: Global Trends in Online Violence Against Women Journalists. We studied and showed that women journalists in prominent positions tend to face virulent online attacks. So in the survey of 900 journalists, almost 3/4 say that they have been attacked online. And there's more. So in tech-facilitated gender-based violence, there can be higher attacks on women based on their identity. So we talked about identity earlier in the earlier panel. So this could be ethnicity, age, caste, or your sexual orientation. So the same report also showed that 64% of women journalists, so a lot of you here in this room, have faced online attacks. But put into picture another part of your identity, so if it's a black woman journalist, the number goes up to 81%. If it's an indigenous woman journalist, the number goes up to 86%. If she identifies as Jewish and is a journalist, it's 88%.
All right, so you're talking about the women being attacked online, how there's that gender-based violence. Does it mean that then we're hearing automatically less from these women because they're like, I don't want to put my face and my name out there because I know that I'm going to get all this hate online?
Yes, indeed. So like another study, many studies have shown that another subset of women that also get attacked are women politicians. So there's been studies by the Inter-Parliamentary Union, for example, in 2021, where 46% of women African parliamentarians say that they have been attacked online. And the corresponding number for those in Europe is even higher, it's 56%. And a lot of people have said, and this is a study done by the Center for Democracy and Technology in the US during the midterm elections of 2020, they said that it has a chilling effect on them. It's to say to them that you don't belong in this space. And it's done through qualitative interviews, so people have gone on the ground and actually asked these questions of people running for the Senate, for the Hill.
Thank you very much, Eirliani. Jennifer, take us to the media landscape of Germany. What voices are we not hearing?
I think that was like quite a jumping in. I want to start like one step earlier. We had, I think, 2 days of very interesting discussions about a lot of issues. Also, this issue popped out a lot of times. And I would want to start to raise the question about the it was called journalism out loud. Yeah. So I think that's very true, but I would like to, again, raise the question I think Barbara Massing also raised when she opened up. This loudness is kind of not the solution, but it's the problem we are living now. Journalism is suffering, a lot of people are suffering, and this attention economy we are seeing and we are living. And the answer is not really being louder. That goes as well for marginalized voices, but is to try to make nuance be heard again. And so I would like to go a bit more in that direction. I do think that what you said is an issue, but I think we have to be conscious that the attention economy and the loudness we are seeing is built by all of us, not only by one dominant group.
Okay, that's an interesting thought right there. So you're saying the problem is not the silence, but actually that we're too loud. There are some voices that are actually too loud and then kind of overpowering, and you can't hear the other voices. Srini, I want to bring you into the conversation because what is interesting about your publications is that, first of all, they have been around for 100 years, and you publish in Tamil. So there are about 80 million Tamil speakers around the world, and still you're a minority in India. You have publications and magazines for different groups. So you have one on women's issues, you have one on personal finance, on spirituality, politics, and social issues. And you say that you want to be the voice for the voiceless. So do you agree with what Jennifer just said, or do you have a different mission?
So thanks for this. I think I'd like to set the context from an Indian perspective. And from that perspective, I'd like to complete what Rupa had said a little while back. We are a land of 1.5 billion. We speak about 120 languages. We have about 1,000 different castes, and we are a melting pot of culture. Yet, over the last 15 years, our Prime Minister has been attempting to make India speak one language, face one common election across states and the center. So we are being driven away from pluralism into a monoism, right? And the attempt is to supposedly create a unified India, but also it is getting us away from our federalism as well as trying to devoid us of our identity. So my perspective here is that marginalization has got perspectives, and I want to just bring that here. We are marginalized by numbers, and they are the scheduled tribes and the nomadic people who are really small in numbers, completely scattered all over India, and literally have no voice when it comes to development and how that affects them. So simple example of that is a Nicobar project which is coming up. 133 square kilometers, about 70,000 hectares of forest land, of rainforest land, which has been untouched since the beginning of civilization. The tribes untouched by human till date are being taken away for resorts and army and the naval operations. And nobody is here to talk for them, because they don't have a voice, right? We are marginalized by indignance. the scheduled castes. I mean, not many people here would understand what this caste system is all about, but it's systematic segregation of people not being allowed to do many things that normal humans are expected to have as their freedoms for thousands of years. That is our caste system. It's very, very degenerative, and they are marginalized. We are marginalized by silence. The small and marginal and the farmers who have very, very limited land, less than 1 hectare, and in a country like India, they have no voice, and their lands are just either taken over or they are completely bulldozed.
So these are examples of the communities whose stories you tell in your publications, but also now you ventured into TV production, and that is also a platform for you to reach your audiences.
Yeah.
Andreas, I want to bring you into the conversation now, because I'm wondering, first of all, from your perspective, who are the marginalized here in Germany? And also going a step forward and asking about, in this digital age, is there really a need for legacy media, for example, to be an ally when we know that most people can just go online and tell their stories?
I thought a lot about what can I share with you as experience, because it's so, as we already see, so many perspectives on what media can do for marginalized people. And I give 2 examples. One is what we try as Republica. Republica is a large conference, an event, 30,000 people showing up, and we, since a lot of years, we give young people under the age of 21 a space where they can meet under themselves and organize themselves. But that's already a question which is focusing on the demographics in Germany and in Europe. It's nothing you maybe take home to India, because it's totally different. But in Germany, the young voices are not here because there are not so many young people as in other countries. So you need to think about which media environment, which groups need. And we have very good experiences with this. Giving space, because nobody in the age of 17 want to discuss with their teachers about their experience online. They want to do it with professionals, but not with elderly men. It doesn't work for them. So they need free space to use that. Platforms we offer, like Republica, to discuss their experiences, their visions, and things they want to do with media. And the other thing I thought I had was, we are all marginalized in the sense of that digital tools we use for 10, 15 years, like Twitter, just was bought and shut down. So we have, and that brings me to the point, we are all have a need for media which are with a basic infrastructure for communication with each other, which is not owned by a few. We had the discussions a lot all the days. So this is, I think, very important point we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years, that it is for an open society and a discussion very important that the access to tools is not gated by very few.
All right, we will continue with that point in a moment when we go to solutions then and see how do we get away from the system of very few people owning the power within the media houses and also the technology and the digital platforms. But now, Sylvie, I want to turn to you, because of course, when we hear UNESCO, we think about these cultural or heritage sites. We don't necessarily associate UNESCO with press freedom, but in fact, your division and what you have been doing for decades is advancing and promoting press freedom and media literacy and these things. So talk to us about the trends that you're seeing when it comes to pluralism and press freedom and freedom of opinion.
Thank you very much. Yes, UNESCO is always associated to the cultural heritage, but UNESCO is also the pluralism, because for those who don't know UNESCO, it's the UN agency, specialized UN agency for science, meaning protecting the biodiversity and the communities living and promoting this biodiversity. In terms of culture, we have also conventions to promote and protect the cultural diversity, including linguistic diversity. In terms of education, we have programs to fight hate speech, anti-Semitism, and this is part of the problem. And in terms of communication, the founder of the constitutional mandate, it's at the preamble of the UNESCO's constitution to promote the free flow of ideas by word and image. This is how you can make the link between the different fields of UNESCO's work. So concerning the main trends, we launched in December 25 our flagship report on, which is called the World Trend Report on Freedom of Expression and Media Development. And it's a 4-year report. So I'm going to give you just some figures because I'm not going to explain all the dimensions of this report, but these figures will show you where we stand in terms of pluralism and freedom of expression. Pluralism, I take the word pluralism as a holistic concept, not only expression of all voices, but also the environment in which we are living. So very shortly, the Global Freedom of Expression Index has fallen by 10% since 2012. Media self-censorship has raised by 63%. For the first time in 20 years, authoritarian regimes outnumber democracy ones. It means concretely that 72% of the world population is living under some form of authoritarian rules. Over the past 3.5 years, more than 310 journalists have been killed due to the exercise of their profession. Women journalists are disproportionately targeted. Online abuse is linked to offline attacks, and it has doubled from 2020 to 2025, double. So meaning 42% of women journalists which are abused online are attacked offline. Of course, I'm not going to re-enter into this discussion because during the 2 days, but economic traditional business models are eroding as advertising revenues migrate to digital platforms. And this shrinking of the civic space, we can see it also concerning artistic and cultural freedom, but also academic freedom. Well, there are also some good news. Between 20 and 25, 1.5 billion people have gained access to social media and messaging applications, which means more participation and more exchange of ideas. And nearly half of the countries worldwide have adopted laws that do recognize community media. And maybe you will speak about community media because it's a way of making voices heard. And more countries also have adopted information law, access to information laws. Half of the countries worldwide have adopted these laws. No, it's more than half. It's 140 countries. And advance in digital tools have also enabled a significant increase in cross-border investigative journalism. And this is very important because this cross-border facilitating investigative journalism has been able to expose corruption, organized crimes, abuse of powers that no single outlet could do alone. So all in all, we are really experiencing a very complex, challenging world, and the response is systemic. We cannot approach one problem by one problem, and this is why pluralism, we need to secure, protect, promote freedom of expression, because it implies behind that pluralism.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sylvie, for not only bringing us, the negative trends and things that are not going well that we have, of course, at every journalism conference, but also saying, hey, I'm seeing some positive developments. And of course, the report, we can all find it online if we just want to go back and look at those numbers more closely. But now, Jennifer, I want to turn to you again to ask you, you told us that there's an imbalance in the kind of dialogue that we're having in our societies and in our media, and I'm wondering then how do we get the balance back? when you were an editor-in-chief, I believe it was easier to say, okay, this is a newspaper, so I can decide what story do I put where. But then in the digital space, how do we make sure that there's that kind of balance and that we do bring in the people that we say, okay, we're at the margins of society and of the public discourse?
Well, I mean, at the beginning, it's even easier in the digital area because you have more space. So that means I have more space to give to different voices. But the problem is, of course, that with the digitalization, we have social media popping up. And I think we have to be more honest in traditional media. We are not the gatekeepers anymore. This has moved. And so the whole structure changed. And of course, we can talk about traditional media giving voices to people, to marginalized groups, or to people who are too silent or don't have a voice. But that's actually not that true, because in other media, there are a lot of marginalized groups who have loud voices, and it's even, I think, nowadays sometimes...
Can you give an example?
Yeah, for example, I think it's sometimes a problem. For example, if you go on a tool, I don't know how to call it, like TikTok, the balance is completely different from what we see in Germany, at least in traditional media. And it's even sometimes difficult because who assigns the label marginalized voice? And is that really true? Because again, the loudest to assign this label will be the most heard, but perhaps it's not true. So this is a very complicated situation, and it's not so sure. We use this words as if it was completely clear what we mean, but it's not that clear. It's not the same in traditional media. The balance between traditional and new media is not so clear, and I think we all have a structural problem here.
All right, Srini, I wonder what you have to say, because you brought us very concrete examples. You said these are the marginalized voices that I'm seeing, but then moving forward, what would you say is the way that...
Let me add one thing. I think the situation I'm talking about is different from the situation you are describing, because we are here, I'm talking about Europe or the States.
Sure.
But what he is describing is, of course, something quite
But
different.
would you say that there's nothing comparable in Germany? I'm not saying that we're talking about maybe nomads that are somewhere outside where you can't reach them in any way, but I believe that there are communities that we don't hear about, whose stories we don't hear.
Well, probably, and I must say we have a great disbalance in traditional media in Germany. So we have newsrooms that are not diverse at all, and traditional media. But still, does that matter tomorrow? Because this, I'm sorry to say, and it goes for the big media houses in Germany, the question is whether they are the most important voices, if it's important to whom they give voices tomorrow, and I mean tomorrow like in 2 years' time, in 10 years' time.
Okay, so diversity in the newsroom, at least I believe some would say it is a solution. And Srini, I know that you, Vikatan Group, that you also are big on training new journalists. What are the values that you give them, and what do you tell them are the things that they should look out for, and what is their role?
Before I come to that, could I just make a small point here? I think what you've said is probably completely at contrast with what we experience back in India. Yes, Instagram has taken over, Reels have taken over consumption in India too. But what I'm seeing is that when you approach journalism with empathy, it still works. So, we had 3 girls from a tribal village who had written into us saying that they don't have toilets in their village, right? We just wrote about it in our magazine. People sent in money. We went and built the toilets. We found out there was a prospective art student who actually painted the toilets beautifully. And then we got her a seat in the Arts College in Chennai, which is actually very difficult to get through. And she is the first art college graduate from that village, right? So if you approach news with empathy and curiosity, and if you involve your readers and your audiences, over the last 20 years, we have actually undertaken at least 7 or 8 key projects, including drought relief and right up to water, water restoration of lakes, spending over $1 million from about 4,300 donors, and we ourselves have put in money. So journalism does not need to end only with the writing or the publishing or the posting. It can
has
actually
the power to
also
impact people's lives as
yeah,
well in
it
a
can
very
also
tangible
impact,
way.
and I believe that is probably the only way we can truly stay relevant, right?
Thank you, Srini. Now, because Jennifer has said that what we do as legacy media probably won't matter in a few years because we don't have the power, we're no longer the gatekeepers. I want to now talk about platforms and how we can maybe collaborate with them, or if we need to create kind of the newsroom of the future and our own platforms. And Eirliani, this is when I come back to you, because you experienced a situation where the media became your ally. You used to be a member of Twitter's Trust and Safety Board, and when Elon Musk took Twitter over, you resigned and you said, okay, this is a warning because we're seeing a sharp rise in hate speech. And after you issued the warning and resigned, a few days later, Elon Musk said, okay, you know what? I'm done with this Trust and Safety Council. We don't need it anymore, and he dissolved it. What did the American media, especially, how did they talk about your story, and how did they elevate this topic?
If I may, let me tell you the story in my own words. So I was a founding member of the Twitter Trust and Safety Council. This was back in 2016. I was the first woman from Asia. And as you all know, Elon Musk took over the platform in October 2022. After just 1 month, there was a meteoric rise in hate speech against Black people, gay men, and Jewish people. There was no way I could in full conscience stay on. And so I resigned, as you said, Liz. And I tried to get as many as council members to resign alongside me. At the time, there were 100 of us. In the end, 2 did. We wrote a press release explaining our reasons for resigning and posted on Twitter. It went viral. Elon Musk instigated harassment against us. His followers issued at least 1 death threat that we saw and doxing threats. So the media went to town in the US, and foolishly, I was quite naive. I was at Harvard at the time doing my doctoral studies, didn't expect it. So my phone was completely lighting up. I was interviewed by NPR, the BBC, the Canadian Corporation, the Washington Post, Hunter's Blood, and so on. I didn't expect my story to take wings, but it did. And so for you here who are doing media here in this room, you can be such an ally for advocates like myself. So I speak up again on issues concerning online safety. The media has an amazing role in terms of humanizing complex stories, complex issues by telling stories, like my story. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much. Now, Andreas, how do we move forward then? We know that people like Elon Musk have a lot of power, they control the technology, they control the algorithm, and we say we still want to be in a position where we reach our audiences and we still penetrate with the stories that we have researched, the investigative journalism, everything that we bring to the table. So what do we do? How do we make use of what is already available? Do we need to build new platforms? That is something that we heard yesterday and today as well.
Since a quarter of a century, I'm an advocate on open source technology already. And I was not sure if it would move into the center of so many discussions again after this period of enthusiasm on digital. We thought it's a powerhouse for democracy, etc. All these things happening in the last 20 years. Now we're coming back, everybody thinking about who owns the infrastructure and how we teach young people and undereducated people in which technologies. And I think if we see the AI age in front of our house now developing, it's even more important that we come back to basic technology knowledge for people, and that we are not stuck in a completely digitalized infrastructure which is not controlled by anybody we know personally. So I'm not saying everybody needs to do its own servers or things, but we have to put up the question, at least who is able to use infrastructure be used day by day. And there are solutions which are you may work on a lot in your daily life, but if you see it in Europe and in the US, it is not used anymore because a few companies own the infrastructures and nobody is setting up a Wi-Fi mesh network anymore because it's easy to buy from somewhere else there and there. And I think this is a discussion we should really empower how education is done on digital society. And this is the topic we try at Republica to bring into light for a few days in the year in our festival to see what the impact of the digitalization on society is and how can we still doing things that matter if we take back the control on the machines.
So digital media literacy, that is one thing that you advocate for. Open source solutions are out there. We could start using them. I wonder how realistic that is. And maybe, Eirliani, you want to talk about that? Because I'm sure that most people here would say, yeah, it's good to be independent or at least reduce our dependency from big tech. But then if we're very honest, if you look at all the systems that we have within our departments, within our media houses, they are all from the US. I don't know if we have any like German-made or...
But just this one sentence, I think it's the starting point is to think about it and to even have a visualization of what I'm using, because I'm so trapped in structures which are not seen anymore, and this normal can be ending very soon. And for us, Twitter was the main source of our community work, our network work, and it ended immediately in 2022 or 23 for us, and that was really a meltdown of our communication. Now we are back to newsletters and doing complete other work. So it's not theoretical, it's happening.
It's happening already. Okay, I'm gonna give Eirliani and Jennifer a chance to respond briefly, because I know that there are also guidelines for these digital platforms by UNESCO, and Sylvie, I want you to also tell us more about that.
Exactly. I think the issue really here is about safety by design. When you talk about digital media literacy, you're putting the onus back on us as users, back on caregivers and parents. And I think it should be like a health product. I come from, did my doctorate in public health. The emphasis really should be on the companies themselves. They need to take responsibility for what they have produced. And it's just like car seats, seat belts, smoking. Take ownership for what you've done and don't put the impact for the downstream on us, the rest of society. So there are actually simpler solutions. So for example, Frances Haugen, the whistleblower from Facebook, she said that, for example, there is a way where you can say, okay, maybe age verification or whatever, kids the age of 15 and below, at 9 p.m., things will just slow down. So don't switch it off completely. The companies can do that. They just slow down. The kids lose interest, they go to bed. So there are actually ways to do this. I work in terms of online safety. So at Harvard, when this happened with me and Elon Musk, I pivoted my thesis to look at the form of online harassment that he's done. It's called network harassment. He's an amplifier. So how do you stop that in real time? There are ways to do this quantifiably. So it's not that we have to have governance. I'm sure UNESCO will have a say in this. We have to have governance around how they do their products. And if they want to enter the EU market, for example, make it clear. These are our guidelines. You're entering our market. We want to protect our users.
Jennifer.
I totally agree with you, and I also agree with that we need more media literacy. But at the same time, look, remember when Elon Musk took over Twitter? Since then, a lot of people said, oh, okay, I'm going to leave it. Yeah. I don't want to be part. And Twitter changed to the worse, but there are still a lot of people on there. And also, so-called legacy media picks up a lot of issues and a lot of trends on Twitter. So there's not even media literacy amongst journalists. And that's why I always repeat, we are, for the moment, although we think we are not, we are allies of all these big platforms because we are there, we are giving them content.
I wonder how to get out of that. Srini, maybe you have an answer, but I'll let you think for a moment because Sylvie, It is your turn now. I know that you've brought us guidelines from UNESCO that should govern digital platforms. I don't know if these are recommendations, how closely you work with these platforms, but tell us more.
So some 4 years ago, we have decided to launch a global consultation with different stakeholders, member states, civil society, tech companies, digital experts, and so on. And we received concerning the governance of digital platform. We didn't use the word of regulation because sometimes people are nervous with this word, but we use the word governance, and it was a huge, we received 10,000 contributions from more than 150 countries. So we prepare the guidelines, what we call the guidelines for the digital governance platform. And it covers, so 3 years ago, it covers a series of items, which was mostly accountability of the digital platform. Digital platforms were involved in the consultation and in the process of drafting the guidelines. Since 1 year, it's different. But, so we had different issues, the transparency, accountability, and audit. The fact that the platform should be auditable. This is the first thing. The second thing was the protection of freedom of expression, because freedom of expression remained, and the human rights-based approach remained our approach from the beginning. So the protection of freedom of expression, the question of due process, the question of access to remedy. We had also the question of risk assessment vis-à-vis children, crisis situation, conflict, hate speech, disinformation. So we developed some metrics concerning these issues. Of course, the protection of journalism online, which is a discussion that we had during the last 2 years. So the question of attribution, the question of discoverability, the question of data access, and finally, the possibility of building a regulatory capacity, and again, in terms of democratic oversight. It was not a question of censorship or control, neither the question of stopping innovation, but how to implement democratic oversight within this ecosystem. We launched last week a survey on fair compensation, because it's also important that the revenues are attributed to the creation and the journalist, and also that the most vulnerable and linguistic marginalized media are also recognized and get some revenues. So this is a little bit the work that we are doing. We complement this work with media and information literacy, because we need also to we have the duty bearers, but we need also to, the right holders need also to be trained. When I say media information literacy, it means, of course, to provide the skills, but also to develop critical thinking in terms of the production, the content, and the dissemination of the content. And more, we are working with a new I would say, category of people who are the creators, the content creators, influencers. Because, again, we did a survey, and we realized that more than 66% of influencers or content creators do not check their information and their source. But they want to be trained. They don't want to be associated as journalists, but they want to be trained. And we know that they have also an impact nowadays, especially with the youth. So we try to have different approach in order to, again, to answer to this systemic problem. And just one word concerning the pluralism, we also do work with indigenous people, because they have media, and we do realize that the media of indigenous people is 3.3 billion of people. So it's not minor in terms of figures. And the same with disability people, because it's something where they are not covered in journalistic work, but they are not also present as in the newsroom. For example, in Ukraine, you have more than 3 million disability people linked to the war, and they are not integrated and covered by the media. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvie. All right, so we're going back, we're getting to the final stretch of our conversation. And Srini, I had asked you earlier, what do we do now? A question that has been, of course, already discussed at the Global Media Forum, but I want to get your view. Then how do we either work together with these platforms? Because at the moment, they are the ones who have the power, and that is where our users and our readers are.
Absolutely, Liz. Younger audiences are flanking TikTok and Insta. Political parties storm those audiences through their virtual warriors, providing enough information and or disinformation, as the case may be, which can influence their behavior. Algorithms lurk around like authoritarian dictators, deciding what needs to be published and what doesn't. And in many ways, us journalists and news organizations have become the ones who are marginalized. So what is the way forward, right? I'm just suggesting, I mean, I'm just paraphrasing Mr. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world. Actually, we have seen that when you talk their language and when you put out reels which make an impact on younger audiences, you're actually able to connect with them. So when there is so much of nonsense that is making noise, why can't the good make noise? Why can't traditional media houses be out there? I know that there is no money to be made on Insta or TikTok, right? But at least we will be able to create reach, and we will hopefully be able to create some impact among those audiences who are likely to follow our brands over a period of time. Because anyway, they are getting completely influenced and they're getting misinfluenced. Can we be the right influence on them? That is a thought.
Okay, any more tips and ideas on how we can become the right influence? Jennifer, you're looking at me.
Because of course this is a discussion we had for years and years in the newsroom. And of course the answer was a lot of times, go there, meet them, try to do the same. And I just don't believe that that's the answer. I think that's the problem, trying to be the same.
Give me the answer then in one sentence.
So I don't know, but I really believe that media literacy and thinking of other structures is the way, and getting back to a system that is more not only friendly to lower voices and to silenced people, but to everybody basically, because this noise, this system we are living in basically, that's like, it's hurtful for everyone.
Giving a voice to everybody could be difficult for us journalists to do, but Andreas, I want to hear what you have to say in the final round.
I think a lot of media houses are moving to doing more events and physical meetings. And I think this is also a structural way to do that much more often, that we meet physically and discuss about topics like we did it here, and just making us a big picture of the dramatic change we are in, and it's not so easy to become a force by our own, but the people should have more places to meet and come together physically. I think this is, for media, something very important, and will also part of a future business model for a lot of media houses too.
I believe everybody who's here is like, yeah, we need to meet more often. Everybody will agree with you. Eirliani, you have the final word. And let's connect it with journalism out loud.
Thank you so much. I think I just want to build on what you two were saying just now, and I believe, and I agree with that. Social media tech makes us go faster, accelerate things at speed, and they want to break things. I think we need to go slow. And then also just building upon what you say, Andreas, I taught a class at Harvard where we were looking, Marshall Gantz was the person that went around doing the work for the President Obama's campaign, so doing one-on-one work. You're talking one-on-one to people. So political polarization that's happening, that can't be done by the political parties. It can't be done just with the media houses. It has to be done ourselves, here in this room, all of us, regardless whether you're in the media or not, one-on-one. So before I moved here to Mannheim University under the International Academic Freedom Program, and that was sponsored by the Vikatan Foundation. and I left Washington, D.C. But while I was living there in the last 1 year, the last year that was, I hosted people at my home to have this kind of one-on-one conversations that you're talking about. And eventually the BMV Stiftung Foundation began to sponsor it. Because we can't make change unless we decide that we have a commonality and we have values to talk to each other about. So it's beyond politics. It has to be about us as humans, centering ourselves as humans.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful note to end on. Please give a big applause to my panelists. Thank you so much. It has been fantastic discussing with you. Thank you.